New salary cap starting at $7 million, up from $1.5 million. Average revenue share of nearly 20% across the deal. Okay, but I got a question here. We're I assume basing this on net revenue, right? I'm not even bringing up gross. Really? I don't even know why it got brought up. They weren't ever getting gross, ever. But
nearly 20%. That phrase is carrying a lot of weight right now in WNBA circles. When Shams Charania dropped the details of the new collective bargaining agreement, one number stood out above all the rest: players getting an average revenue share of nearly 20% across the deal. But here's what nobody's asking. What does nearly actually mean? Is it 19.9%? 18%? 17%? Because that word nearly is doing some serious heavy lifting, and it might reveal something uncomfortable about how this deal actually went down.
20%. Now, that near 20%, that's carrying a lot of weight here, okay? That's carrying a lot of water. Because what is considered close? Is it 18%? Is it 18.5%? Is it 19%? Is it 19.5%? Is it 19.99%? Or is it 17%? Which I really wouldn't consider close to 20%. But it does make me wonder. I would assume the league did this and they're going to make sure they're not going to lose money. But it does feel like the league caved here a little bit.
Let's put these numbers in perspective. The salary cap jumps from $1.5 million to $7 million. That's a 467% increase. The Supermax goes from just under $1.2 million to $1.4 million. Average salary hits $600,000. And here's the kicker: the minimum salary sits above $300,000. Now, if you watched the FIBA tournament this past summer, you saw some of those minimum salary players in action. The basketball was rough. Some of those performances would be hard to justify at half that price, let alone $300,000. So where's all this money actually coming from?
I'm starting to think the league may have got hosed here. The league may have caved to the pressure of the players. Seriously, good God. The only reason, and you're looking at the name, the only reason the league decided to do this was Caitlin Clark. That's it. That's it. No way in hell they consider doing this without her.
The league turned its first profit in 27 years during the 2024 season. We know this because players received their first ever revenue share payment under the previous CBA, which only kicks in when there's net revenue left over after expenses. One profitable year. That's the foundation this entire financial structure is built on. And it wasn't organic growth that got them there. It was one player. Caitlin Clark brought 3.2 million viewers to broadcasts. She filled arenas in opposing cities. She moved merchandise numbers that the league had never seen before. Without her, we're not having this conversation about $7 million salary caps.
Comments, quote, "Speaking from experience, players like me are going to be the ones that I think feel it the most. And that's what I think we're all super proud of. Because that's what we set out from the beginning, was making sure every player felt change in the CBA, and that's exactly what has happened." Brianna Stewart, "The deal is going to be transformational. It's going to build and help create a system where everybody is getting exactly what they deserve."
But here's where it gets complicated. The WNBA set two separate deadlines for this CBA negotiation. They missed both. When you set a hard deadline and then don't follow through, what message does that send? It tells the Players Association that the league needs this deal more than they do. It reveals desperation, and desperate negotiators don't get favorable terms.
From the off the court and on the court and off the court aspects, just excited that we can tell our fans we're going back. Brianna Turner, I'm skipping her. Erica Wheeler, Alexa, play "We're Gonna Be Alright" by Kendrick. Come on. Atlanta Dream Center, Brittany Griner on Threads. Threads. Quote, let's hoop. Let's hoop. Brittany's at the end of her career. I don't think she's getting a Supermax now. I wouldn't think anyway. Unless, an expansion team or something. I don't know.
Caitlin Clark's response to the deal is telling. Quote, players like me are going to be the ones that feel it the most, and that's what I think we're all super proud of, because that's what we set out from the beginning, making sure every player felt change in the CBA, and that's exactly what has happened. Read between those lines. She's acknowledging that the superstars are taking less, so that the bottom tier can make more. That's the Supermax player admitting she's subsidizing minimum contracts. In what other professional sports league does the generational talent celebrate getting a smaller piece of the pie?
I would love to know. Did the owners, it feels like the owners caved. It feels like the owners caved a little bit here. I mean, I don't know. It's such an interesting question. I would assume that the owners, here's the thing, I would have assumed, and I would, even right now, I would think this allows them to turn a profit. All right? And that's why this took so long. I would think that. Somebody lucid,
Breanna Stewart called it transformational, said it's going to create a system where everybody gets exactly what they deserve, but deserve based on what metric? Market value? Performance? The league's actual revenue? Because if we're being honest about what players deserve based on the revenue they generate, most of these salaries don't make mathematical sense. The average WNBA team pulls in roughly 15 to 20 million in revenue per season. You're paying 12 roster spots an average of $600,000 each. That's $7.2 million in player salaries alone before you factor in coaches, staff, facilities, travel, marketing. The margins are razor thin, assuming they exist at all.
But in dealing with the WNBA, that's what you would think. Because businesses that don't turn a profit don't stay in business for 30 years. That's where all common sense goes right out the window, right? They've been propped up. So is the NBA footing the bill here? I mean, is the NBA still having to subsidize the league to get this deal done? Tell me what you think in the comments section below. I guess they had to get a deal done. It looked like the owners, the WNBA ended up looking weak. Y'all gave 2 deadlines, and you didn't follow through on either one of them. Jokes. Peace. I'm out. Till next time.
Thanks for watching the show. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Be sure to tune in next time.
Brittany Griner posted on Threads, "Let's hoop. 2 words. That's it." And you can read the subtext pretty clearly. Griner's at the tail end of her career. She's not getting a Supermax contract under this new system. She spent years playing in Russia during the offseason because WNBA salaries couldn't cover the lifestyle she wanted. Now the league finally has real money to distribute, and her prime earning years are behind her. Where was this deal in 2016? Where was it in 2019? The timing is brutal for players in her position. So let's address the elephant in the room. Is the NBA still subsidizing this league? For 27 years, the WNBA operated at a loss. The NBA covered those losses because they believed in the product, because it was good for their brand, because it was the right thing to do. Pick whatever reason you want, the financial reality was the same. The WNBA was not self-sufficient. One profitable season doesn't erase nearly 3 decades of red ink, and now they've committed to salary structures that quadruple previous spending. Unless the Caitlin Clark effect sustains for years, not months, the math doesn't work. Think about what happens if ratings regress to the mean, if Clark gets injured, if casual fans lose interest after the novelty wears off, if the next draft class doesn't produce another transcendent star. The league has now locked itself into financial commitments based on one anomalous season. That's not sustainable business planning, that's gambling. The owners had leverage here. They could have held firm on the deadlines. They could have pointed to 27 years of losses and demanded proof of sustained profitability before committing to massive salary increases. They could have structured the deal with performance escalators tied to revenue benchmarks. Instead, they caved, twice on the deadlines, and apparently on the financial terms too, based on how quickly the Players Association celebrated. Here's what makes this particularly interesting from a business perspective. The previous CBA included revenue sharing only on net profits. Whatever was left after all expenses got split with the players. That made sense. That's how you protect the business while rewarding players when times are good. But this new deal guarantees players nearly 20% of revenue regardless of profitability. That's a fundamental shift in risk allocation. The owners now absorb all the downside risk while the players get guaranteed money whether the league makes a profit or not. In what world does that make sense for the ownership group? You've got 12 teams, most of which have never turned a profit individually. You've got one breakout season driven by one generational player, and based on that, you're committing to salary structures that assume sustained growth and profitability. If this were any other business, investors would be running for the exits. But this isn't any other business. This is the WNBA, which has operated outside normal business logic for its entire existence. The NBA's backing allows them to make decisions that would bankrupt an independent league. That subsidy, whether direct or indirect, is what makes this CBA possible. The question is whether that subsidy continues, and for how long. The salary cap going from $1.5 million to $7 million is great for players. Absolutely. Nobody's arguing they shouldn't make more money, but where's that $5.5 million increase per team coming from? Multiply that by 12 teams, you're looking at $66 million in additional salary obligations across the league. The new media rights deal helps. Expansion fees from the Golden State and Toronto franchises help. But are those revenue sources enough to cover a 467% increase in payroll? And what happens in year 3 of this CBA when those one-time expansion payments are gone? The Players Union played this perfectly. They waited out the deadlines. They leveraged the Caitlin Clark momentum. They made this a public relations battle the league couldn't win. Imagine the headlines if the WNBA had locked out players during the most successful season in league history. The optics would have been catastrophic. So the owners folded. They gave the players most of what they wanted because the alternative was a public relations nightmare. From a pure negotiation standpoint, you have to respect it. The Players Association read the room, understood their leverage, and extracted maximum value. But from a business sustainability standpoint, this deal feels like it's built on quicksand. One great season doesn't establish a trend. One superstar doesn't guarantee long-term growth. And one profitable year doesn't erase the structural financial challenges that have plagued this league since 1997. The real test comes in 2026 and 2027. If ratings stay strong, if attendance remains elevated, if merchandise sales continue at these levels, then this CBA looks like a stroke of genius. The league will have locked in player salaries before the market exploded even further. But if the Caitlin Clark effect fades, if the casual fans move on to the next thing, if we regress to 2023 viewership numbers, then the owners are stuck paying $7 million salary caps based on revenue that no longer exists. Kelsey Mitchell is about to make $1.4 million this season under the old CBA structure. That's Supermax money. Under the new deal, that becomes the floor for elite players, not the ceiling, which means the true Supermax contracts we'll see in 2026 could approach $2 million or more. For a league that's had exactly one profitable season in 27 years, that's a massive financial commitment. And here's the thing that nobody wants to say out loud. Most of these players aren't worth these salaries based on the revenue they individually generate. Caitlin Clark is. Maybe Breanna Stewart, maybe Aja Wilson, but the middle and bottom tier of WNBA rosters, they're getting paid based on what the top 5 players in the league are worth, not their own market value. That's fine if you're a player. That's how unions work. But if you're an owner trying to run a profitable business, that's a problem. The comment about players deserving exactly what they're getting rings hollow when you look at the actual numbers. Deserve implies some connection between value produced and compensation received. In the WNBA's case, that connection is tenuous at best for most of the roster. The stars are probably still underpaid relative to their impact. But minimum salary players making $300,000? Show me the revenue data that justifies that number. This entire CBA is a bet on sustained growth, a bet that Caitlin Clark stays healthy and dominant, a bet that the 2025 draft produces more stars, a bet that expansion into new markets drives revenue, a bet that the media rights deal delivers the projected income. A bet that fans who showed up for Clark stick around for the league. That's a lot of bets stacked on top of each other. And if any of them don't hit, the whole structure wobbles. So did the owners maintain a backbone here? Absolutely not. They set deadlines and didn't enforce them. They had leverage and didn't use it. They could have demanded proof of sustained profitability and instead committed to massive salary increases based on one outlier season. The players won this negotiation decisively. Whether that translates to a sustainable business model for the league remains to be seen. What do you think happens when the Caitlin Clark novelty wears off and ratings drop back to pre-2024 levels? Can this league actually sustain $7 million salary caps, or did the owners just commit financial suicide to avoid bad headlines? Drop your take in the comments, because this conversation is just getting started.